My dad said, "You'll come back." I won't. He stood by the porch, arms crossed, the same way he always did when we argued. The truck was already running, my suitcase thrown in the back seat. He said it like it was a promise, not a threat. "You'll come back." I didn't answer. I just looked at him. At the same man who raised me on tough love, who never said, "I'm proud of you," unless there was a but afterward. I had spent years craving his approval like oxygen, and every time I thought I had it, he found a way to take it back. When I got my first job offer in the city, I expected him to say, "Good for you." Instead, he said, "You think you're better than us now?" That sentence haunted me for weeks. I wanted him to be proud, not angry. But with Dad, pride always came disguised as silence. So that morning, when I told him I was leaving, he didn't hug me or wish me luck. He just said those 4 words, "You'll come back." The drive to the city felt heavier than the miles on the road. I checked my phone, half expecting a text from him. Nothing. I told myself I didn't care. But I did. Every time I passed a gas station or an old diner that reminded me of home, I wondered if he was sitting in his chair, pretending not to miss me. I rented a small apartment, cracked walls, noisy neighbors, and a single window facing an alley. Still, it was mine. I found work at a marketing firm, made friends, and slowly built the kind of life I used to dream about. Even when things were going well, I caught myself hearing his voice. Every accomplishment felt incomplete without the validation I'd never get. On my birthday, I texted him first. "Hey Dad, hope you're doing okay." No reply. 2 weeks later, Mom called to say he'd read it out loud at dinner but didn't know what to say back. That was his version of caring. Then, last spring, Mom called again. "It's your dad. He's in the hospital." I froze. Heart attack. I took the first bus home. The entire ride, his words echoed in my head. "You'll come back." It felt less like arrogance now, more like prophecy. When I walked into that hospital room, he looked smaller than I remembered. The man who once lifted car engines with his bare hands now struggled to lift his own cup of water. He looked at me, really looked, and said, "You came back." I nodded, tears threatening to fall. "Yeah, but just for now." He tried to smile. "You did good, kid." I just didn't know how to say it. That broke something in. Years of anger melted into sadness. I wanted to stay, to rebuild what we lost. But deep down, I knew I couldn't live my life waiting for the words he'd never fully said. The next few days were a blur of hospital visits and sleepless nights. Sometimes he'd wake up and tell stories from when I was little, how I used to follow him everywhere, how I once cried because he left for work without saying goodbye. It hurt to hear him remember those things now, when we'd spent years pretending we didn't need each other. On the 3rd night, he asked me to hold his hand. His skin was cold, but his grip was strong. "Promise me you'll keep going," he whispered. "Don't get stuck here like I did." I wanted to tell him I already had, that his shadow followed me everywhere I went, but I just nodded. He closed his eyes, and I knew he was tired, not just from the illness, but from carrying all the words he never said. He passed away 3 days later. Mom said he asked her to tell me he was proud. She texted it to me while I was back in the city, sitting alone in that same small apartment. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. A week later, I drove back home one last time to help Mom pack his things. His jacket still hung by the door. His boots were by the steps, covered in dirt and memories. I slipped one of his old flannel shirts into my bag, not because I wanted to remember the fights, but because I wanted to remember that beneath all his pride, he still loved me in the only way he knew how. Dad was right about one thing. I did come back, but not the way he meant. Not to stay, just to say goodbye.